Hi everyone, it's Katie and today is day 4 of 31 Days of Tarot. Today's prompt is our top 5 tarot books of 2016. This was an interesting one and it got me thinking, and 3 of the books that I've chosen are actually companion books to decks that I have. So I will start with the guidebooks, the books that are companions to some of the decks that I have. And the first would be the Watersprite Tarot companion book by A. Muir MacDonald. This is a really lovely, like in terms of how it's done. It's coloured, the pages are glossy, feels a bit like a magazine, and you get like, of the major arcana, you get really big reproductions of the cards. What I love about this book is that the artist has included a breakdown of the symbolism that she's included in the cards. That is my favourite thing, when a guidebook explains the bits and pieces that make up the imagery and why they're significant. I don't really like it when a guidebook is just basically like a Tarot 101 book and just goes through the regular meanings. I want to know what's different about this deck and the intention behind the imagery. Then she goes through the story of the person depicted in the card, the meaning of the card, and what it means reversed. She also has a bit of an explanation of the courts, because I know they can be a bit tricky for some people. And each of the minors also has like a whole page. The courts have a little bit less information, but you get that kind of starting information, which ultimately helps you understand the courts more effectively. She actually uses the same elemental association for the courts that I do, which is not something that I see very often. That's the kings as earth, queens as water, knights as fire, and the pages as air. That's how I see it. That's how I've always seen it. Not very many books follow that. So perhaps that's another reason that I really like this book, just because it helps me further understand the tarot how I see it. Next is the Anna Kay guidebook. This is a fairly small book, but it still feels really substantial. The reason I've chosen to include this is because it is very succinct, which I think is a benefit quite often. It explains the meanings behind traditional Rider-Waite tarot without getting too heavily involved in symbolism, esoteric occult symbolism and knowledge. Like, she kind of just leaves that all behind and focuses on what the card means for us. And I think that's a really helpful way of getting back to tarot, the basics of tarot, learning to read tarot. I really enjoyed this book, and it actually did help me learn to understand some of the cards better, including the star, moon and sun, and then also cards like the Empress. I learnt a lot from this little book. Next would have to be the Spiral Tarot companion book. This is out of print, but I got it on eBay for like $15. And it is fabulous. I just did a review of the deck and I spoke about this book a little bit in that review. It's just all about archetypes and mythology. Each of the majors is broken down and you get quite a bit of information. That's a magician. So we get like 3.5 pages, 3 pages. And it's basically retelling the story of Hermes as the magician and how his mythology applies to this card, what we can learn from it. And then the last paragraph is the divinatory meaning. So I just learnt so much about mythology. I'm not really well versed in a lot of mythology, so I learnt a lot about mythology. It deepened my understanding of the archetypes held in the cards. Tarot for Yourself by Mary K. Greer. I found this secondhand at the Theosophical Society. It is very much a workbook, which isn't generally my favourite kind of book, but Mary K. Greer is just brilliant, and she includes so much information that sometimes I can't quite believe that it's only this big. It's so helpful, and there's heaps of stuff in here, more than just the meanings of the cards. Like, we get to learn what our soul cards are and our personality cards are and what that means. Like, it's really using tarot as a tool for personal development and growth, which is such a great way to look at tarot, and I think this was one of the first books of its kind. And last but not least is a book that I actually have 2 copies of. It's The Tarot Revealed by Paul Fenton-Smith. This one I found at Savers, and I just fell in love with it. I don't know what it is about this book. I think I just really enjoy the amount of information. Like, it's enough to feel like you're really getting a good whole-rounded understanding of a card, but it's not so much that you just feel overwhelmed. He breaks it down kind of like a bit of a breakdown of the symbolism, a little bit of information about the scene and what's going on in the card, and then there's the general meaning, a relationship meaning, and a reversed meaning. I think ultimately what I like about this book is similarly to the Watersprite companion book. I felt like he had a very similar understanding of the cards to me. It's just that he had more experience and more knowledge. So it just fit with how I intuitively saw the cards. It's just that it provided a bit more information for me to learn from. And that's it for day 4 of 31 Days of Tarot Challenge. As always, any comments or questions, leave them below. And until tomorrow, much love. Bye.